For 3 years, Bobby Joe Long operated as the classified ad rapist. But it wouldn't be long before he graduated from a serial rapist to a serial killer, before inexplicably choosing to let one of them go. That choice proved to be his undoing, as she would later help to put him away, ending his murder streak and sending him to death row, where he would be lethally injected 35 years later. Welcome back to True Stories. Join the family and let us explore some of the most interesting true crime cases. As always, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. Now, let's get into it. Robert Joseph Long was born in Canova, West Virginia, on October 14, 1953, but moved with his mother, Luella, to Miami as a child. Long's loathsome feelings towards women began with his mother, with whom he shared a bed until he was 13. Luella was a cocktail waitress, wore revealing outfits, and would often bring strange men home with her. Serial killers often have distressing childhood experiences that dictate their later crimes. For instance, in the case of Long, he fell off a swing and suffered his first of several head injuries at just age 5. He was also mercilessly bullied at school when he developed breasts. Upon reaching puberty, due to a genetic disorder called Klinefelter syndrome. Then, while enlisted in the army, Long suffered another head injury when he crashed a motorcycle. While in the hospital, he began to have unpredictable and violent outbursts, and developed a burgeoning obsession with sex. Even while in a body cast, Long managed to pleasure himself about 5 times a day, while recovering in an attempt to relieve himself. Finally, it seemed perhaps that there was hope for Long, when, in 1974, he married his high school girlfriend, Cynthia Bartlett. Together, they had 2 children. His violent outbursts didn't relent though, and he was once reported to have choked Cynthia unconscious and slammed her head against a television. "When I came to, I was on the couch," Cynthia Long, who has since remarried, recalled. Of course, he was there crying, "I'll never do it again. I'm so sorry." Then the next words were, "When you drive yourself to get your stitches. If you tell them what really happened, I'll lend you when you get home." In 1980, Cynthia left and took the children with her. Bobby Joe Long's insatiable desire for intercourse only worsened. He satisfied this desire by looking through classified ads, going to the seller's home, and assaulting women if they were alone. He'd pull a knife on them, bind them, and rob their homes after having his way. Between 1981 and 1984, Long committed dozens of assaults using this method. Some estimate his count at 50 women. In 1981, Long was charged, tried, and convicted of sexual assault, but appealed the conviction and was acquitted. Long moved from Miami to Tampa in 1984. In his 1978 maroon Dodge Magnum, he would drive up and down Tampa's Nebraska Avenue, which had many clubs and bars and was frequented by sex workers. Here, his sexual assault crimes escalated to murders. Long persuaded women into his car, assaulted them, then drove to a rural, deserted location, where he killed them. Most of his victims succumbed to strangulation, though some had their throats slit or had been bludgeoned. One was shot. Many were bound and posed in grotesque positions. The first of Bobby Joe Long's victims was 20-year-old Artis Wick, who he abducted, assaulted, and strangled on March 27, 1984. Her remains were found on November 22, 1984. On May 13, the body of 19-year-old Lana Long, an exotic dancer at Nebraska Avenue's Sly Fox Lounge, was discovered in a field. She was nude and bound, with a cord tied around her neck. Underneath her body was a white scarf tied in a knot. 2 weeks later, the body of 22-year-old former beauty contestant Michelle Sims was found off an Interstate 4 overpass. Sims was also nude and bound, with her throat slit. Her clothes lay next to her. Sims had been working as a receptionist, but was reportedly also a drug user and involved in sex work. On June 24, 1984, 22-year-old Elizabeth Loudenbach's body was discovered fully clothed in an orange grove. She had been assaulted and strangled. Loudenbach was a factory worker who had never been involved in prostitution. She happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, simply walking down Nebraska Avenue, just blocks from her home, when she was abducted by Long on the evening of June 8. Forensic analysis confirmed that these murders were all connected. On Sims and Loudenbach's clothing, and the white scarf found under Lana Long. Tiny red nylon fibers, likely from carpet, were discovered. Long's fifth victim was 21-year-old Vicky Elliott, who disappeared September 7, 1984. On her way home from waitressing at the Ramada Inn. Elliott's body was not found until November 16, 1984. She had been strangled. On October 7, 18-year-old Chanel Williams' body was found. Williams was a sex worker and was also abducted from Nebraska Avenue. Her profile differed from that of the previous victims. She was the only black victim, hadn't been bound, and had succumbed from a gunshot wound. She was nude, and her clothes lay next to her. Forensic tests on Williams' clothing revealed the presence of those tiny red fibers, though. 1 week later, 28-year-old Karen Dinsfriend's body was found in an orange grove. She had been strangled and bludgeoned to death. Dinsfriend had also been working as a prostitute on Nebraska Avenue. Ligature marks were present on her neck, and she had been bound. 22-year-old Kimberly Hopp's remains were found on the side of US 3001 North on October 31, 1984. But her murder was not attributed to Bobby Joel Long right away. She was nude, but exposure to the elements made her body impossible to identify. Too much time had passed to collect forensic evidence from the scene. On November 3, 1984, 17-year-old Lisa McVeigh was riding her bike home from work at Krispy Kreme round 2:00 a.m. A man ran at her, pushed her off her bike, and dragged her into his car. He blindfolded her, drove her to his home, and assaulted her repeatedly over a period of 26 hours. Unknown to Long, Ivey had seriously been contemplating ending her life just hours before this attack. She had even written a note due to years of emotional and sexual abuse endured at the hands of her grandmother's boyfriend. McVeigh tried to connect with her captor even after he assaulted her repeatedly and sodomized her. Once, in a moment of bizarre kindness, when Long washed and brushed her hair in his bathroom, Ivey asked him why he had done this to her. He blamed his hatred for women. She continued to listen to him talk about his problems with women and showed him sympathy. She even offered to be his girlfriend and promised not to tell anyone. Then, Ivey made up a story about being the sole caretaker for her sick father. Her attempts to connect with serial killer Bobby Joe Long ultimately saved her life. While still blindfolded, McVeigh used the bathroom in Long's apartment and touched everything she could to leave her fingerprints. In the early hours of November 4, Long ordered a still blindfolded McVeigh back into his car. She counted the steps in his house and noted his red carpet. First, he drove a short distance to a 24-hour bank machine. McVeigh said she heard the sound of the machine from under her blindfold. She caught a glimpse of the word Magnum on the car dashboard, unique to the 1978 model. Long drove slightly further, pulled over, and told McVeigh to get out of the car and keep her blindfold on for 5 more minutes. Then, he drove away. She later proclaimed, "I would say, thank you for choosing me and not another 17-year-old girl. Another 17-year-old girl probably wouldn't have been able to handle it the way that I have. I truly believe that all the abuse I'd been through in my life helped me get out of that situation." Lisa McVeigh went to the police right away and told them everything: the color of the car, the word Magnum on the dashboard, the red carpet in Long's home. She explained that her captor had used a bank machine just before she was released. Forensic tests on McVeigh's clothing revealed the presence of the same red carpet fibers discovered on the other victims. Police acquired a list of all 1978 Dodge Magnum owners in Hillsborough County and subpoenaed the records for all bank machines in North Tampa. Comparing the lists, they found that only one 1978 Dodge Magnum owner had used a bank machine at 3:00 a.m. On November 4, Bobby Joe Long. Authorities found Long's car and home not far from the bank machine he had used. They surveilled Long for 24 hours before arresting him for McVeigh's kidnapping and assault on November 16. During his interrogation, Long first confessed to his crimes against McVeigh. Initially, he denied involvement in the other murders. But on hearing the evidence police had, particularly the red carpet fibers from his car, confessed. By the end of his interrogation, detectives attributed Long to 10 murders and McVeigh's assault and kidnapping. A plea bargain was agreed upon in which Long pled guilty to 8 of the 10 murders. Long subsequently received 28 life sentences for murder and assault. including those sexual assaults he committed as the classified ad rapist. Bobby Joe Long was sentenced to death for Michelle Sims' murder. On May 23, 2019, Long was executed by lethal injection. I'm sure we can all agree that justice was surely served. We've come to the end. Thank you for watching.